Good afternoon and welcome to the next Civil Designer technical webinar in the series. Today we're covering Civil Designer Sheetfile editing and production drawing generation. My name is Rod Harris and today I'm joined by Christopher Schmidt. Chris, what can be achieved with Civil Designer Sheetfile functionality?
Thanks, Rod. Yes, you can generate dynamically linked drawings. These include layouts, plans, long sections, cross sections, with detailed title blocks, north signs, grids, company logos, annotations, setting out data lists, and so much more, whatever your title block requires. This is to automate all the drafting work from the 3D model to the 2D construction drawing.
And what are the main advantages of this functionality?
Yes, Rod. Back in the day, we used to take our title blocks and put it in the model space, or make our model into a CAD entity and then trim it into your drawings. This would take a lot of time. Nowadays, with the use of the dynamically linked layouts, you take the sheet files now allows you to create your layouts with the viewports and with all the setting out information, places all this information together in your layout drawings. This saves you hours of post-production CAD editing because everything is automated and your layouts will now be dynamically linked to your 3D model. When you change your 3D model, the road design, perhaps you change the VPIs, the sewer layout, perhaps you change a few manholes, maybe some levels. The construction drawings are now live and dynamically linked to the model. They will now update without any further CAD work required.
Sounds good. Chris, can you start from scratch and show us how to create a sheet file?
Yes, certainly. That will definitely be covered in this webinar. I would like to firstly state that Civil Designer has spent countless hours putting together a whole host of sheet files for you. So while we will cover how to create a brand new sheet file from scratch, we're also going to teach during this webinar how to take our already created sheet files and edit them to your company's standards. For instance, title blocks, and we'll also be covering how to change and edit some of the elements within the sheet file. Perhaps the pen color numbers are not the same as your company's, and we will cover that as well. Let's go ahead and open up a blank sheet file. So we'll go across to the sheet file editor. You'll see that you start off with a global region. We'll now go ahead and draw some other regions within your global region. I'm going to draw a plan region. A long section region. I'll leave some space at the bottom for the title block. And a cross-section region. You'll see in the properties at the top, just below the word properties, will be the name of the entity that you have selected. The global region should be smaller than the paper size, but the bottom left coordinates should be 0, 0.
Let's go ahead and close this sheet file. I just want to open up our title block that I want to XREF in. This sits in the CAD as an external drawing and is referenced into your sheet file. You'll see under the display settings, we make it an A0, 1mm equals 1mm. It sits in the Cartesian plane, and the center of the drawing's coordinates will be 0, 0. So if you press R and H on your keyboard, it'll take the mouse to the center of the screen where you will see your coordinates are 0, 0. Great. Now that we've checked our drawing that we're going to reference in, let's close that, save it and close, and go through to our sheet file once more. We can reopen it and reload that sheet file. And now we can reference in that drawing. We'll press R and H on the keyboard to find the center point. We'll then go ahead and select the title block. This could be your company title block. You can see that we've positioned it inside the paper space, which is the dashed lines. We'll now go ahead and move the model or the global region. We want the global region to be bigger than the title block, but smaller than the paper space. So we'll go and move it with these pivot lines. You can move it if you know the exact location. You can use the properties and type the location in, but I prefer to just drag it. It's never going to display in the printing, so you just need to move it so that it's in this between the, as I say, in between the paper and the title block. We'll now go and move our plan regions. I'll go and shape it. I'll show you different ways of shaping it. I'm going to use N on the keyboard to snap to the CAD edge of the title block. Another method we can use is to use the modify move function. I can then click J on the keyboard to jump to the edge and J on the edge of the title block. I'll then just clean up the last few items. Great, now that I'm finished with my regions where I want to place them, I'm going to bring in a north symbol. Before I bring in the symbol, I just want to check that the drawing settings for the symbol are correct. So I'll open it up in CAD. I'll load up that symbol. I'll then go to settings, drawing settings. I'll make sure it's an A0, 1 millimeter equals 1 millimeter Cartesian. Everything seems to be fine. And I would like to take it off the server and onto my location where I'm saving my projects so that symbol for the north side symbol becomes part of this project so that if anything gets updated, my project symbol stays the same. You'll see that it's CAD entities. It doesn't need a block, but the center pivot point needs to be coordinates 0, 0. You'll see a little bit later today, we will allow the symbol to rotate to always face north. This is done automatically, and I'll show you in a moment how to reference the drawing so that it knows always to point in the direction of north. We'll go and say File, Load Drawing. We'll then choose a position on the drawing that you want the north sign to be. I'll then move the north sign. You can either pick it up by its hook point or go to Modify Move and select it and move. You'll then need to go to the properties, so you can right-click Properties and say Yes to North Sign. It will now always pivot to face in the northerly direction. Okay, I'm going to place some prompt questions into the sheet file. So when the user creates the layouts, they'll be asked certain questions, and you can choose these questions completely optional. I'm going to use the geometry cross and the O on the keyboard to ratio jump between 2 points. This is to find suitable location for the text's hook point. So just to recap, I've pressed O on the keyboard, and then I use the ratio jump of 0.5 between 2 points, and I invoke the snap mode to jump at a point to an end point of a CAD line. I'm currently jumping to the CAD that is XREFed or loaded in from the title block. Now that I have my geometry, I can go and say geometry or draw global titles, and I open using the more than sign to ask the question. I type the question in, and I use the less than sign to close it off. You'll see that I used the questions are related to the items that I want placed in the drawing. This is to do with, in this particular application, it's going to ask who will check this drawing and who drew this drawing. The user will type this information in, and it will then be displayed in the titles. As I say, this is optional. If you want to automate it one step further, you can do so by placing the exact answers in the people that are working on this project in the title itself. I've now removed the geometry lines, and I'll put some stamps. Now, if you use the drop-down menu, you will see that you'll be able to stamp the file's name and location on the server. I'm just going to use a 90-degree bend and place it over here. So the name of the drawing and the location to where it will be found on the server will be placed at that location. I'll also put the time that it was produced into the drawing. I'm also going to place the date. You'll see that there's already a date in the title, which we can go ahead and remove. I'll show you a bit later how to remove it in the original drawing, and it will update over here. I can go ahead and put the scales for the roads, for instance, into this location, and it will also go and get that information from the model and place it into the sheet file or into the layout itself. I'll change my hook point's position. So I'm giving it a horizontal scale and the vertical scale. The point 0 indicates that it's two 0 decimal places. You can go and double click and edit it should you wish. I'm putting some text before the code, and I will go and place the starting stake value for the specific drawing, for the specific road, for the specific layout will be placed there. You can add more if you wish and edit if you want to as well. Completely up to you. Just want to jump over to Windows Explorer quickly. If you go to C Drive Users Public, public documents knowledge base, it's always a good thing to right click over here and send that to a desktop shortcut, because inside here you'll find lots of resources that knowledge base Civil Designer has placed into onto your local drive. Sheet files and templates and a lot of new 3D road signs have been placed. So it's a good thing to make it. And you can see I've got a host of sheet files that are shipped with the software. So you need to find the one that best suits you. And instead of starting one from scratch, you can edit our sheet files. So let's close that and go back to our project. I'll quickly close the sheet file that we've just created. I want to load the plan sheet file. The plan sheet file is great because you can expand on the plan sheet file. It has all the setting out tables for all your different roads and pipe network um, models. So it will um, create setting out information as well as the layout plan view of your networks, road and pipe networks into your project. You'll see that all the tables are already loaded. They will not show if you untick during the creation of your layouts or if there isn't any information for that type of model. For instance, if there isn't a sewer layout, it will not show a sewer table. Once you've loaded a sheet file that is similar to the sheet file that you require for your project for the creation of your layouts, you can load it and remove any information from that sheet file which you do not require. You'll see we've got all the listings, all the tables or lists as they call it, in this sheet file, and we don't really want to go and reinvent the wheel by recreating all these lists. But we don't necessarily want this title block that you see here. So we can go ahead and use a Windows selection and select and remove all the global entities. We can do the same for the edges of the road, the edges of the sheet file as well. I'm using the window selection, so only items completely inside will be removed. That is to prevent me from deleting the global and the plan region from my sheet file, which I do require. Remember that your global region should be bigger than your title block, but smaller than your paper space. I'll then go ahead and say File, Load Drawing, and load my title block, perhaps your company title block, into the sheet file. I'll then go ahead and see that I need to actually move my plan region to be better spaced inside the plan area of the title block. I'm using the N on the keyboard, which jumps to the nearest line, in this case, the entity that comes from the referenced in drawing title block. As you can see, all the tables remain and they're ready to be used for your project. You will now be required to go and save this. I always choose to save as whenever creating a custom sheet file from an original sheet file. That therefore you keeping the original intact should you make a mistake. You could save this as perhaps a company standard or a client standard, and you can save it for the whole office to use in other projects, or you could save it locally just for your specific project.
And Chris, how straightforward is it to change the settings on the sheet files?
Now that's great, Rod. Let's go and open up a little bit more of a complicated sheet file. I'm going to open up the roads composite sheet file with all the items. You'll see that if there's anything that you want to be able to change, I can now simply go and select the item. So let's go ahead and select something that we want to change. In the past, we used to have to go to settings, sheet file settings, and go and find exactly where the location of these items were. Now you can click on it, then right click, and you can go to sheet file settings. You will notice there that the item will come up. We'll change this to maybe red, for instance, and you'll see that the color for the text changes. This will be applied to anything within the sheet file. Simply click on it and go to Sheetfile Settings. It'll take you directly into the location. You'll see there I changed the decimal place for the setting out of the heights in the right hand side. Here we can change other items for the lines. So you can change the text, the setting out information, and also the lines. You might want to know how to change the heights of the bands. Well, we can simply go and click on it and press F1. It'll give you an explanation with the labels A to G, and that will help you understand which areas to increase and decrease in height within the values on the sheet file settings table.
And Chris, if you could also show us how to use a paper size that is smaller than A0.
Yeah, Rod, that's a great question. We get a lot of requests for how to do that, and it's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and open up an A1 sheet file size, for instance. You'll notice that once you've loaded the sheet file that's an A1 size, you will still get the paper space for A0. That's deliberately done so that you can see that the reference is to show you that it is smaller than the actual size. Very important is when working with the smaller size paper is to have a look at the global region. Let's go ahead and select the global region's um, position and have a look in the properties. The left and bottom coordinates need to be 0, 0. If that's set up, everything else will go perfectly fine. You can then load in your company's A1 title block and you can bring that in as well. The alternative, which doesn't always work very nicely, is to go and say plot generate and choose the A0 sheet file. You can then choose any size lower than that. However, that does cause problems by making the text smaller. Here, with this method, you have far better control with the text heights and the scale annotations.
Chris, for a very long road section, what's the best way to create layouts along that road route?
No, thanks, Rod. That's a very good question. Let's go ahead and open up a project that I've got pre-created with a road that's about 5.5 kilometers long. I'll then go and plot generate, and we'll choose a sheet file called the road composite. You'll see that I'll choose an A0, and I'll choose that the layouts I will create inside the project, and they'll be dynamically linked to the model. I'll then choose the start chainage and the end chainage, the horizontal and vertical scale. I'll also tick that it should auto scroll to the next page, so as it moves along the road alignment, it will scroll to the next page. I'll then choose to plot the ground levels as well as label the ground levels. I'll then choose to plot the left and in the fourth line the right hand side's edge levels, but not plot them, just label in the bands. I'll also choose to plot and label the center line of the road. In the extract, I'll choose to get the elevations from these points. That will then bring us to the next screen, which will then harvest this information from the model and bring it into our layouts. Because this is a composite road file, I will have the ability to now also display my cross sections. I'll choose the starting location and the end. I'll choose the offsets from the left and the right in meters. I will also choose the horizontal and vertical scale. I will choose to plot the natural ground as well as the design levels. I'm going to choose to plot along the alignment. I'll choose an overlap distance of 5 meters. Here I'll choose the starting value. I will just accept the values of the beginning to the end of the road. That will then produce a list of viewports that will then become part of my project. I will choose to have crosshairs for coordinate systems on my drawing. I will also choose a key plan. In this case, I'm going to rather use the plan sheet file for the key plan. And I will change the scale to 5000. I will now choose to plot the road PIs table and the setting out information for the road as well. It's now producing all the layouts from the model to the drawings layouts. And here you can see the layout drawings with the tables have been produced. With the key plan as well.
Okay, and in the case of a bulk waterline?
Yes, Rod, that's a great question. Let's go and have a look at opening up a bulk waterline. Here is a 5 kilometer waterline that I've got run. I've preset this up as a pipe route. I have got some YouTube videos on how to create pipe routes. As you can see, we've got the stake values along the route that is automated with the pipe routes function within water mode. I'll go and open up the water composite sheet file. Here you can see that I have selected the pipe route called bulk waterline. That is what was previously created when I created the pipe route. You can change the display settings of the reservoirs, pumps, valves, chambers, boreholes, and scour valves. You can also add any other further information to that. You can then click on the next button, choose your scale, and the auto define will also work on the pipe routes. I can choose along the route. There you can see that the location or the viewports are created along the route. And here you can see all the layouts are now created along the pipe water route. Something that might be of interest to our webinar listeners this afternoon is the ability to use multiple plan regions on one sheet file and have the ability to use this along a route. If we go ahead and open up a project, and I go ahead also and open up a sheet file just to show you what I mean. Here we've got, if we load up a multiple plan region sheet file, just wait for it to load up. You can see that I've got two plan regions. If we look in the properties, just want to go ahead and draw a global line along this route just to separate the two, and that'll come in handy a little bit later today. There you can see I've got two plan regions and one global region. I'll just go ahead and change the color of that line that is separating the two plan regions. Let's go ahead and save that and go back to our project. If we go now and plot generate, and we use that sheet file that we've just opened, you'll see that I can one other thing is, if you've already got information, you can always go and redefine all, right-click and quit. That'll clear out your data. We can auto-define along the route, and there you can see I've got my lines. There I've gone and created the layouts on each page, and you can see the north sign pivots to face the direction of the viewport.
And how can we export the layouts to PDF format?
Yes, no, Rod. The best way for us to do that, let's go and open up a project here. I'm going to go plot publish. There you can see you'll be able the ability to plot all of your layouts to either to the printer, or in some cases, if you've got a good PDF printer, you can print it to PDF, or you can print it to drawings, to independent drawings. Each layout becomes its own model space and an independent drawing. Here I can, as you can see, I'm busy plotting this out to independent drawings, and I'm changing it from a survey plane to a Cartesian plane. I'll now go ahead and open up those layouts. I've placed them in all these layouts. I'm going to go and open them up in their independent drawings that have been created. Let's open this one for example. Here you can see I've got the independent CAD drawing of that layout. I can now go and say File, Export to PDF. Select the location that I want to save it to. I'll keep the text as normal. I'll then go and open up that PDF in a PDF viewer. And there you go. There is a follow-on. I know we've run out of time now. Please check out our YouTube page in the next 2 weeks. We'll be posting up some more advanced tools that you can use within the Sheetfile editor. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and to everyone participating in today's event. Just a reminder that we are more than happy to facilitate a user group for your team, online or on-site, around your project requirements. So do drop us an email to info@civildesigner.com to chat with us. We'll be presenting another webinar on the 27th of September, so we'll see you then. Thanks again, and goodbye from Civil Designer.